Welcome to Stories and Songs, a series of interviews featuring musicians from the world of jazz and improvisation. My name's Andrea Keller, and I'm thrilled today to be speaking with Kristin Berardi. Welcome, Kristin. Thanks for joining me.
Thank you for asking me.
My first question, what have been the pivotal events in your musical journey?
Sorry, it cut out a little bit. Can you say it again?
Sorry, Kristin. What have been the pivotal events in your musical journey?
Okay, thank you. I think one pivotal event, like my first pivotal event, was being really little and seeing an orchestra playing on the ABC, on the television, and telling my mom I want to play the violin, and her supporting that. I really remember just wanting to do that. A pivotal event at 15, by that stage I was still doing classical violin, taking it very seriously. I was doing alto saxophone, and that kind of got me into jazz, and I played in the stage band. But I really loved singing at that point, and we would do gigs. And I'm from a little town, so we got all the gigs. So it was awesome. So I'm from this little town called Kamala, but I used to go to school in Mackay. And it was awesome. Like every weekend we were gigging with like lectures from the uni. But I didn't know what I was doing with my voice, so I started losing my voice a lot. I started getting really hoarse, and I was a very shy young person, and I would talk really like almost in a whisper. I refused to talk on the gigs. I would just sing. And I didn't know it, but I was speaking in a really unhealthy way and also singing in a really unhealthy way. And my music teacher at school said, Kristin, I think you need to maybe go and see an ENT because I think you might have nodules. And I was freaked out. But of course, I went to see if I did. And I had the start of nodules on my vocal folds. They said they were the size of pinpricks on them, but I cannot even describe the pain I would be in, like at a gig. Like it was just like in my throat. And so at that point, the treatment was to be silent. So I was had to be silent for 2 weeks, just writing to my family and at school, and not talking, not singing. And in that time, I realized how much I go to hum and sing. And going without, I think at that young age too, I missed it so much. It was such a release for me. It was my safe place, and it was gone. And for a long time, like I really realized that that was such a huge blessing. It was so hard as a young person, but also it gave me this real determination to get that technical side of what I do under control, and to never take that for granted ever again, because I'd tasted going without it. So in some ways, I think that's probably the most pivotal point, because what it allowed me from very early on in my career was to never take those gigs that we can often overlook or not give the same respect to. Like I was doing pig and whistle gigs with James Sherlock, and like there'd be a pig, like just over there, and people not listening over there. But I had this different approach because of what I'd gone through, and just been like, okay, this is not an ideal setting. This is not where I see myself. This is not my, um, you know, I, but I also realized that by giving my all and being completely present and respectful of my craft, but also the people that were there and the opportunity I was getting, by taking all of that really seriously, there was nothing ever taken for granted, and I am grateful for that because you just never know who's listening, even at those, crappy gigs, crappy gigs. Plus, I was getting paid to do what I loved. Yeah, I didn't want to smell pork, but hey, or the Broncos Leagues Club, you're getting moved around because you're blocking screens and you're like, this is soul crushing, but you're like, but I'm still going to sing my little heart out for you all. Because you want, like we all have to go through those times, like you're not going to just start getting the festival gigs straight away. People have to hear you and you have to get better at what you do. I couldn't talk on the microphone at that point. I had to practice all these things. So yeah, I think that was probably my most pivotal point. Not being able to sing.
And well, I mean, you've already told us about a big obstacle that you've had to overcome, but what other obstacles have you had to overcome and how have you done it?
Yeah, I guess probably an obstacle early on as well, and it raises its head occasionally, is just not being, like I said, really shy. So the first obstacle was for me to kind of a level of acceptance that I had to be on the stage with everyone, and then I had to also speak. So I used to beg my lecturers to let me. I remember the first time we had this, concert at the con, and I'm like, can you please just let me stay to the side in the wings? And like, I desperately want to sing. Don't get me wrong, I really want to be a part of it. But can I just be behind the curtain? I'm really listening to everyone, I promise. And they were like, no, not a chance. So yeah, really, I think because as a 17, 18, 19-year-old, I was quite uncomfortable with that position, with being, it was such a strange juxtaposition because I desperately wanted to sing. I desperately wanted to hopefully make people like connect with people and hopefully allow people to feel something. I wanted that more than anything, and yet I wished that I guess was just a recording artist, was just coming through speakers to someone, because I felt really uncomfortable in my body. I felt uncomfortable hearing myself talk because I was like, well, who am I? I don't have anything amazing to say. And yet I could emote and put all of that into a song, into my sound, into the words. But I really struggled to feel like I was allowed to do that as a person. So that was a huge thing. And at times that's come up again, in my journey, where I have to deal with that again, and I have to go, no, like this is, it's part of the gig. I guess that's what I had to accept. Like that's part of my job. It's part of my role. And then at other times now I'm like just yabbing away and I'm like, who am I now? Like I'm just sharing all this stuff. And I guess, yeah, through my life realizing that, yeah, we all, like I certainly struggle with, having the same, like I would never think that of someone else. Like I never am judging someone else like that. So I have to really question myself sometimes and go, Kristin, you know, you would never say, well, you don't have the right to say that on a gig. What, you wrote this song and you're going to tell us about it? What? You know, like, so I have to, you know, call myself out on it sometimes because I can get a bit too judgy of myself in my head. Yeah, I think struggling with owning my sound, or feeling like I was allowed to have my dreams and my goals and be working towards those. I think I placed a lot of probably too much. I gave my power away a bit too much, and because sometimes you might have people in your life, maybe in your family, who maybe don't get what you're trying to do, or a loved one or a close friend, and they, some people, you know, some people can be malicious about it, and really don't want to support you in your goals. And some people don't realize that how they're saying, you know, how they're expressing things to you really dampens your spirit about what you're trying to achieve. So I think for me, it's taken me until, how old am I? So I'm 39, and I reckon it's taken me probably into my mid-30s to really, like, I've always kept going. And I think that's come just from probably, I've always been good at that. Just kind of digging in and going, okay, this is really hard, but I'm going to do this anyway. Or I don't want to do my violin practice. It's so flippin' boring. But I know I have to get better. You know, whatever. Like, I think that's what, you know, it's very much gifted me with learning an instrument. But I think, yeah, as a younger person, I might share something like that with someone who was close to me, and their lack of enthusiasm for it would dampen my spirit a bit, or my drive. And I'd kind of quietly keep going, but maybe not go for things that I deeply wanted. And I find that I'm able to do that more in the last, say, 4 years or so. Just be like, I'm scared out of my brain right now. I don't know whether this is going to come through, but I'm going to put my art out there. I'm going to put in that grant application, or I'm going to go for that thing, because actually that is closer to what I want, instead of doing these other things on the side. I guess that's what I'm trying to say. Instead of going for the really big things that I've wanted, I've gone for things like over here and gone, I'll just make this lovely little, I won't, you know, do this amazing, huge artwork that takes up the whole wall, which is what I actually envisage. I'll just do I'll do a series of cards. That's what I'm doing. So I've been doing series of cards, and then I've moved to the A4 print, and now I'm like, I'm doing I'm doing the walls. Okay, come with me.
So glad to hear you say that. Can't wait.
Thanks.
Do you have a motto? Oh, did you have anything else you wanted to say?
No, I was just going to be silly.
Okay. Do you have a motto or a personal philosophy that guides you, or any particular advice, more advice that you'd like to share with us?
Well, one thing, one of the quotes that I've loved for a long time, and it's kept me going, is a Bill Evans quote, I think he was asked when I think it was like when he had just moved to New York or was going to move to New York, and he was being questioned about like how he's going to make that work, and he said, all I have to do is take care of the music. If I do that, someone, even if I do that, that's right, even if I do that in a closet, someone is going to knock on the door of my closet and say, hey, we're looking for you. And that's how I've always felt about this crazy road that we all have to kind of make. Like we all have to make our own. We're chipping away, we're moving things, we're rerouting. I've always believed that if I put the music first, things will work out, because my integrity is there, my heart is in that, and not what I think people want to hear, or what my ego says, or this picture I look a certain way for certain things. It's like, whatever, like none of that. It all just gets put in its rightful place if I'm focusing on the music. There was a time, probably a little while ago, where I thought maybe I'm delusional. Maybe it's not that simple, like I kind of got annoyed at myself because I'm like, I believed this really whimsical thing, which is so naive and so telling. So I kind of fell out of love with that thing. And I was like, Kristin, you're always like, yes, you're doing the work, but you're always waiting for someone else to find you. Like, I think I got a bit like disillusioned with it all, and went, oh, well, I guess I just keep working and work hard and try and get better at those other things that I'm not so good at, like being organized and paperwork and things like that. But recently I've had some things come through for me. So I was like, maybe it's fun to just be like, I've just been working on my craft. And maybe it hasn't happened in the time frame that I wanted, because I wanted everything like at least 6 years prior to, it's just like when you're impatient for those things, it's never happening kind of quick enough, but you have to trust the process, I guess. So I'm back in love with my quote. I'm like, yeah, it's cool. It'll work. And I guess some advice would just be, I think my philosophy, or the thing that I hold, I think we all have to find the reason why we do what we do, and we have to put that in a really safe, precious place. So I don't know why, but I picture mine on the top of my piano where I practice, and I try to keep it's safe, and I dust it off, and I remind myself, and so I have to, because you have to keep reminding yourself of the reasons why you do what you do, because you will have knockbacks and you won't get that grant, or you won't get that gig, or you'll get the gig and then COVID will happen and you lose all your gigs, so you have to, you just have to hold on. And also I take the time to identify that, I think. And so for me, mine is that music from a very young age was where I felt really safe. It was a place where I was safe and protected, and it allowed me to, like, I would go into my room and I'd put on Mariah Carey or Whitney Houston, or Boyz II Men, and I wasn't in, I wasn't in, I, I love the community that I'm from, but I wasn't in this little town that was really removed from the things that were big for me. Like, I was so far away from music. It was really hard to find music lessons. You know, people don't really tour there very much. There's a certain way that a lot of people live their life there, and I didn't want to necessarily do that. But I wasn't concerned with any of those things when I put on music. I was free, and I was free to express my feelings. It gave me a safe place to cry, a safe place to feel, I guess. And so that's what music's always been. And so I try to keep that really, really protected and connected with. And the other thing that I do before I sing every time is I put out my intent, so that and I surrender myself basically over to the music, because I don't want to get in the way of good music being made. I want to be able to listen really well to what's going on around me. I want to enjoy what's happening around me. I want to react to what's happening around me or not react. I really want to be present so that I can not just be on my own track, you know, like, oh, I've been practicing singing fourths really impeccably well. So I want to make sure I get that in. It's like, no, I've been practicing these things, but also now I'm making music with these other musicians, and let's see what we make together. So I hand things over so that I can be a vessel, and that the music can hopefully move through my instrument, through me, to bless other people, to allow other people to feel or have a break from their life for those 3 minutes or whatever it is. And so that's, and I think if everyone can spend the time to really figure out what it is for them that they want, or that their intent is, if you just acknowledge that before you proceed, I find it gives me better focus. Sometimes I'll start a gig and I'll go, why am I trying so hard? What's going on? And I'll go, oh, I didn't do that little prayer thing. I didn't do the intent thing. I quickly do it, you know. People think I'm taking space, and I'm actually, I'm just getting my shit together. And then it's fine again, because I think when your priorities are right, you know, all that other stuff can flow. Like when yeah, that's
beautifully said, Kristin. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. I'm sorry, my daughter came in to ask very, very, it's quite formal. I think she realizes I'm in a meeting. So she's written me 2 notes asking if she can have a cookie. So my focus was drifting. And then...
That is okay. I won't keep you for too much longer then, Kristin, but could you please nominate a song or an album of your creation that is particularly important or significant to you, and tell us just a little bit about it?
Okay. I'd like to nominate the album With Sam Anning. So Sam and I have played many, many times, but always in a band setting. And we'd have, like, we do, you know, let's do the first head, just bass and voice. And we'd have these like little moments, you know, and then we were playing, and you know, I've been doing duo for years with Sherlock, and I love that smaller setting because of the freedom that it allows. yes, you're completely exposed. Yes, there's nowhere to hide, but I kind of, for whatever reason, I don't know, I would prefer to have that and therefore have the freedom rather than more people and more arranged things. You know, like I guess if you, I mean, that has its own awesomeness as well, but I guess you just give someone a look, or they can even tell if you've worked together enough by the way you sing something or play something that you're going around again, you know, or that you now don't want to do that thing that you just rehearsed. So Sam and I decided we'd do an album, just the two of us. And yeah, I think that's the first album that I've been really I I don't know whether proud is the right word, but I'm really happy to tell people about. I think I'm grateful that from the albums that I've made, I just sort of saw them as like a snapshot in time of where I was. I'm glad I just made albums and put them out into the world and didn't think too much about that. Because I think if I had allowed myself to think too much, I wouldn't have released them because they're not perfect and I'm not perfect. And I can hear I'm so young on some of them. My sound is really different. Yeah, you can tell on some of them, like I'm just like, oh my gosh, how did what like and some of my lyrics, you know, like it just like I'm like, oh my gosh, I was definitely in my 20s. Uh, you know, things like that. So, but this album, I think, you know, taking stuff that we've both written. And yeah, I'm such a fan of Sam's writing. And I think we have a similar desire in terms of how, you know, what we're trying to achieve. We're trying to achieve making good music for people. Where, yes, we're both from this jazz background and that's how people know us, but we both listen or have listened or currently listen to a lot of different things. So there's all these different influences, I think, that we've been able to bring to the fore. On that album, there's a song called More Than We Need, which I wrote, I think, you know, primarily I was writing it for my kids and I, like kind of like a prayer or a mantra. But really it's, you know, for anyone who connects with it. But I wanted to encourage my kids to start to realize and for me to remember that all we can control in the world is what we put out, is how we treat others and how we react to things, or we really can't control what other people will think of us, how other people will react. And if we focus on like for me, I don't know, I've grown up being told I'm too sensitive, I'm too soft, I cry too much, I feel too deeply. And kind of like, you know, it's had this negative connotation always, like, but it's also really interesting because it's like, well, I'm nearly 40 and I'm still like that. I've been doing some work on me, but that remains. You know, so it's kind of like I just wanted to remind myself and also remind my kids, like, if you're being yourself and if you're trying to put out love and goodness into the world, and you're honest, Like if you're trying to live an honest life and maybe other people won't get that, that's okay. Like you have to find that place of integrity for you. And sometimes that's a lonely place because not everyone has the same values as you. But at least you can go to sleep at night knowing that you were choosing exactly what your intent was or your heart would tell you. So yeah, the words in the chorus are, so I'll just sort of sing it. So if we give from the heart and we say what we mean, and if it's honesty we're giving out, we'll see that we have more than we need. And that kind of comforts me sometimes, because maybe it won't work out in a relationship or it won't work out for an opportunity, but if you've just been yourself, maybe it wasn't meant to, you know, and that's hard. But yeah, you have to, I think, keep being open, keep loving, and that's all you can kind of do.
Thanks, Kristin. You are truly inspiring. Thank you so much for sharing some of your story with us and some great advice and really honest stories.
Thank you for having me, and thank you for doing this. It's amazing.